The Isle has been the pinnacle of dinosaur survival games for many years. Not solely because it was the only title of this genre for quite a long time, but also because its level of quality and overall experience it provided was simply unmatched. Despite being heavily flawed, as all of these games are, its gameplay was undeniably superior to anything that was on the market, holding the title of King of Dinosaur survival games for most of its lifespan. But, as expected, this didn't last forever. For the past few years, its direct competitor Path of Titan slowly but surely grew its fanbase continuously, to the point that now it is arguably the best dino survival the industry has to offer. But is it really though? As of right now, Path is certainly the most popular. The Isle has a stable player count between 4 to 5k, where Path has at least triple that amount across all platforms. It is clear that a lot more people choose to play the latter rather than the former. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one game is good and the other is bad. There are many parameters that determine such conclusion. After all, if a title has access to more people, it should naturally have a larger audience as a result. But even though that is accurate, that does not explain POT's success completely. No matter how many people a game has in its reach, if it is a bad product, nobody will buy it. Its quality and value are just as important as its access to an audience, regardless of how big or small it is. The reality is that Path of Titans is indeed not a better game, but a better product than the Isle, and it is not exactly for the reasons you may think. Both entries are in direct competition with each other. However, while that is true, they still possess distinct selling points. Even with other games in the picture, the Isle for many years was considered the best, and for a very good reason. That title was, and still is, the absolute best at delivering immersion. Everything in it was built to provide players with a deep and immersive gameplay experience. They want you to feel like a dinosaur trying to survive in a hostile island filled with a complex ecosystem. That is the premise the Isle had from the very beginning, and ever since its debut back in 2015 that they have been getting better and better at it. Even at this very moment, no other member of this genre surpasses it in that department. But of course that's not the only important aspect a game must have in order to become, or at least remain, successful. While immersion has been executed extremely well throughout the Isle's history, many other components have been either neglected or poorly executed. And it's in those aspects that Path shines through. Path may be significantly less immersive. Their animations may be less fluid or detailed. Its combat may be simpler and its graphical quality may not be up to par with its main rival. But this rather young dinosaur survival does surpass it in some heavily important elements that are easily and very often overlooked: performance, accessibility, and customization. Evrima is beautiful, no question about that. The atmosphere, the lighting, textures, the landscape, all of that culminates into a delightful visual spectacle. But unfortunately, there is a massive problem that haunts the game for a very long time, which has been getting nothing but worse. The Isle's performance is just horrendous. If you ask anybody which one is their biggest issues while playing, the chances of it being performance related are extremely high. The vast majority of people had suffered or still suffer from that regardless of the machine they are using. The FPS reaches ridiculously low levels, stutters are frequent, rubber banding so extreme it literally kills you, and the latency is unstable to a point that increasing the player count by just 20 people makes the game completely unplayable. This is a problem that has not only persisted for literally years, it has been getting even worse. Sure, the game is gorgeous, but what is the point in having pretty graphics if most people can't play it properly for how low the frames are? Path is the polar opposite. Even before the transition to Unreal Engine 5, that the game always had a stable and acceptable frame rate. Even on Gondwa, which is a ginormous map, that the performance is still great. After all, it needs to run on phones and consoles. It does get lower FPS in more populated areas, but even then, in comparison with its competitor, the game runs extremely smoothly. Accessibility is another point where the two titles diverge immensely. Sure, we know that the Isle is only on PC and Path is pretty much everywhere. That alone is a huge bonus for the latter that should be taken into account. But accessibility is not just about where you can find, purchase and play games. It is also about how intuitive and comprehensive it is to play them, especially for newcomers. For many of us, we are very much used to playing the Isle, and thus we know everything about it. What the icons mean, what we need or can do once we spawn, where we can or should go, what each playable does, and so on. But none of that information is delivered to us or even taught. We learn that through either years of experience just by playing the game, or other people teaching us the ropes. If you boot up the game for the first time knowing nothing about it and having no one to guide you, your initial experience is absolutely terrible. You have no guide, no tutorial, no tooltips, no explanation of anything. You don't know how to use scent nor what the icons mean, you don't know what to eat, where to drink, you don't even know how the diet system works, nor nesting for that matter. You don't even know what your own dinosaur does or can do later on. All that information that we veterans take for granted, you either obtain it outside of the game itself or through trial and error for an undetermined period of time. That is a horrible introduction to any title of any genre. It's frustrating, confusing, and overwhelming for new players. It discourages people from trying to enjoy the game by forcing them to go elsewhere just to know how to play it in the first place. Path knows that. Hence why they not only developed a dedicated tutorial area to teach people the basics, but they also implemented tooltips to a big portion of its UI and made it easy to understand and navigate. That does reduce people's immersion, it is true, but it is an acceptable sacrifice Alderaan made to ease people into their game. Besides, you can toggle the UI on and off, so if the UI bothers you too much, you can just disable it. And since we are on the topic of customization, POT is the absolute king in that department. Not only do developers offer community server owners a vast array of tools that they can freely use to customize and tailor their servers at their heart's content, they allow, support, and even encourage modding. If you dislike the way Path plays on official servers, you can create your own and drastically change it around the way you want to experience it. Alderaan has a very focused vision for the title, but they are also willing to provide their own community with their own tools and give them the freedom to use them as they see fit so everyone can enjoy Path. They are even actively working on other game modes, which will also be customizable by the way, so players can play POT in more ways than one, even officially. Though, I know that there's a decent amount of people that dislike one game or the other for multiple reasons, and you are completely within your right to have your opinion. This video is not about who is the best dinosaur survival title. Both offer something that the other doesn't, even though they appear highly similar. This was purely to demonstrate that, regardless of its graphical quality, its level of detail, its level of complexity, that will never matter if the standards of the fundamental pillars of the game are not met. Even if this is the most beautiful and immersive game in the world, if it runs poorly, if it has an abysmal initial experience and has little flexibility even on community servers, that title will be surpassed by one that does those things. The Isle has many qualities, but its slow decline over the years is the outcome of developers focusing on the wrong thing, the outcome of bad decisions. And no matter how good its virtues are, these shortcomings, as long as they remain as they are, this trend will continue. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you want to join the ranks, you can do so for only $1 a month. The link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server, engage with the community, and I hope to see you all next time.
What the fuck?